Hello and welcome to another video. And today I'm very excited and very happy to finally be able to talk about Superman. James Gunn's new Superman, his vision for Superman. This movie has just debuted. I was not one of the people that got a chance to go to the Amazon screening, although I am kind of glad I didn't, because apparently the Amazon screening didn't have the two end credit scenes, even though I'm not going to spoil what they are, but I don't think they were that big of a deal. They were kind of more humorous things. They're not setting anything up for like the future. There is one thing that does set up something for the future in the actual movie, and I will talk about it, but that's kind of it. So the first thing right off the bat, as far as spoilers go, I will mark when I'm going to talk about spoilers. But overall, I really enjoyed Superman. I've been waiting for it, since it's been announced. I mean, fun fact to know for the channel. Obviously, I'm a Batman guy. Batman shit everywhere here, but I've also always been a pretty big fan of Superman. The two superhero movies I grew up with as a child and watched so much I wore out the VHS tapes of would be Batman 89 and Superman 2. I think Superman 2 for me is the perfect Superman movie, even over the original one. Obviously, Christopher Reeve, always going to be my favorite Superman. I just don't think anybody can touch what he did for the character. The first thing I want to say coming right out of the gate of this movie is that David Corenswet is Superman. This dude is so good. Superman. Like, I knew it going in just from the trailers and seeing his mannerisms and how he speaks and stuff that I was probably going to like this Superman. But man, this guy delivers a hell of a performance. And that's one of the biggest strengths of the movie. I think if he didn't work as Superman, your whole movie falls apart. I'm reminded of Superman Returns from 2006. One of the reasons I don't like that movie at all is because, well, Brandon Routh looks like Superman. He doesn't feel like Superman. And a lot of that is not the actor's fault. I believe that when they made that movie, because they wanted to make it this convoluted mess of like, well, it's tied to the Richard Donner Superman, and this is actually a sequel that takes place after Superman 2, they were kind of trying to make him still Christopher Reeve Superman. And I really feel like they picked him because he looked like Christopher Reeve. But he didn't have a lot of speaking parts in that movie in comparison to Man of Steel or this Superman movie. So again, nothing against Brandon Routh as an actor. It was, I think, the fault of the script and the fault of the studio at the time. The second thing I'll say is, like, straight up, this is a James Gunn movie. This is so if you don't like James Gunn's style, if you're one of those people that just, it's not for you, I don't think this movie is going to sway you in another direction. I will say it is a little more toned down from some of his other movies. One thing that James Gunn really likes to do in his movies specifically is he likes to interject a lot of popular music. There is some songs in this movie, but I felt like they were very muted in comparison to, like, go watch any of the Guardians movies. Those movies have huge soundtracks, which personally I think are really good, but I understand the people that would go and see a James Gunn movie and they're not a fan of that, or maybe they're not a fan of how he writes humor or something like that. This is also a very humorous Superman movie. And I think going into this movie, we already know that, like, there's going to be an audience of people that were fans of the Snyderverse that already want this movie to fail and aren't going to give this Superman a chance. I already know that, like, going into this, that's a thing. And I will say, like, for the people that loved Man of Steel and loved that Superman version, I don't know if they're going to like this either, simply because, like, that was very much, I don't want to say more grounded, because it still had fantastical elements to it, but it was a more grounded and more serious tone Superman movie, whereas this is very much more lighthearted. It's probably the most comic booky Superman we've ever gotten. It's really, like, really comic booky, which I appreciate, I always felt like that was kind of like we were kind of teetering on that with the Guardians movies, but I think it's even more so here in this movie. Other everybody does a great job in this movie. I can't look at one performance and be like, that didn't really work for me. I think Rachel Brosnahan, I think that's how you say her name. She's a fantastic Lois Lane. I'll say, like, I like Amy Adams a lot as an actress, but I think this girl is really good as Lois Lane. She has a lot of the mannerisms of Margot Kidder from the original Superman movies. She really felt like that kind of version of Lois, but also new. And I liked the other thing I'll say I liked about this movie is like they didn't turn her into a girl boss at all. She's very much a strong, confident, independent woman, but not in the way that a lot of Hollywood movies try to do now, where they go overboard with it. Like, I think of something like Captain Marvel, for example, where it's overboard and it turns a lot of people off on the character. They also do a good job of like giving her character like an actual like growth pattern during the movie, which I appreciate. And then the other big one for me would be Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor. I will 100% say when the movie started, the very first scene with him where he's like in an office talking to these government people, I was not feeling his performance. It was not the Lex Luthor that I'm used to. And he has kind of like a higher pitched voice for Lex Luthor than some of the other Lex Luthors in the past. But I'll say, like, as the movie goes on, it grew on me to the point by the end I was like, okay, no, this is Lex Luthor, and this is exactly what I expect out of this character. He embodies Lex Luthor very, very well, and I think plays the character very, very well in the story as well. Boy, that's a lot of well. CG wise, like, that was kind of one of the other concerns I think a lot of people have going into this movie is like, man, another CG fest. All of it looks really good except for one. There's one thing. It's not really a spoiler because it's in the trailers, but there's a alien baby that Superman saves at one point in this movie. They showed in the trailer, and I don't know if it's just CG can't do babies right or something like that, but this baby looks horrible. Like, I'll say, like, for a movie where all the other CG looks really, really good, like even you've seen in the trailers, like the giant kaiju that he fights at one point, looks pretty good. Like, not perfect. I would prefer maybe something more like Godzilla looks in -1, but I didn't have a problem with it. Whereas the minute that alien baby shows up, I'm just like, man, that doesn't look good. And it's the one thing that kind of took me out of the movie. Plot wise, I think it's fine. There is, and we'll talk about it in the spoiler section, there is a major thing that they change in this movie. And right now, I'll just say, if you've watched the movie, it involves his Kryptonian parents, so Jor-El. I'm not going to say what it is here. I'll talk about it in spoilers, but for me personally, it didn't bother me. I think it's actually interesting. But if you've seen the movie, all I have to do is say that name, and you know what I'm talking about. I do think I already know there are people that have seen this movie that cannot get past that, and I understand. But for me, and I'll explain my reasons why, but for me, it didn't bother me. I actually thought it was kind of a fresh and unique take. And I want that when I go to a Superman movie or a Batman movie. I want something new and different. I don't want, well, let's just do the same story again and everything. Like, one of the most refreshing things about the Batman a couple years ago was that it's the first time on film that they made him and let him be a detective first. And I thought that was so awesome. And it's one of the many reasons why I just adore that movie. And I think I can say the same about Superman. Like, it's different enough that it feels fresh. It feels unique. And I think part of it is we've had such a long time since there's been a Superman movie. Like, Man of Steel was kind of its own thing. Superman Returns obviously didn't set the world on fire, in my opinion. So it's been a while since we've had this kind of Superman, a hopeful, very kind. I mean, the whole message of the story of this movie is human decency and human kindness. And I think that's a really good message in 2025 that we can all that we all should hear at this point. There is very much a I'll say this, you can draw parallels of kind of some of the stuff that's going on in the real world right now with this movie. But, I've seen a lot. There was a big thing that came out like I think it was Monday this week. I'm recording this on Friday, the 11th. But on Monday, there was this big thing that was like gonna damage this movie for like a 24-hour period where we're like, oh, it's like an extremely woke movie and blah, blah, blah. There's nothing. I'll say this right now. There is not a single thing in this Superman movie that I would consider woke in any way whatsoever. If anything, it kind of rejects that stuff at times, which is very fresh in 2025 and very, very appropriate. It's very much a story that I think people need to see and hear. I think it's going to be a very successful movie with families, especially. This is a Superman for kids, but I think everybody can get into it, and I think that's another important part of this movie. Where you kind of look at like Man of Steel, you're always going to have the baggage of what happens at the end of that movie. When I think statute of limitations has run out on spoiling the end of that movie. But obviously, the end of that movie, he snaps Zod's neck, killing him, and people had a huge problem with that because Superman doesn't kill people. They go way out of their way in this movie to let you know this Superman doesn't kill. He's saving everyone. There's a point in this movie where he even saves a squirrel. So, like, they go so far out of their way to, I don't want to say course correct, but just make it known like this Superman is not going to kill anybody. Also, another huge thing that I really like that they, probably the biggest problem I had with Man of Steel, and don't get me wrong, I love Man of Steel, like even snapping Zod's neck, that didn't bother me. I really, really love Man of Steel. And the one problem I have with that movie is how his Earth parents are portrayed, because I thought Kevin Costner and Diane Keaton, they were fine, but Kevin Costner specifically, like, Pa Kent's supposed to be a very loving, nurturing father, and his version was just not. I mean, there's literally a scene where he talks about, should I be saving people? And his father's like, oh, I don't know. Like, it didn't work for me at all. There's that terrible tornado scene that is still laughable in 2025. Like, that all is not great. Here, they portray his parents so wonderfully. There's an excellent scene in this movie with him on when he gets to go back home. He's sitting on the porch with his dad. Just a wonderful exchange between a father and a son that is great. Really drives home that, like, no, this is we're trying to course correct that. And I hate to use the term course correct because, again, it's been 12, 13 years since that last Superman movie, but this was so much better. There's one thing in this movie that I really didn't like, and I will talk about it in spoilers because it is a huge spoiler. It's actually something that I've not seen anybody else talk about, and I didn't know about it going into the movie. I had an assumption that it would happen, but I didn't know. And then finally there's Krypto, which is big. Like, Krypto is a huge part of this movie, and I think there's going to be, I think overall that the character of Krypto is going to win audiences over, especially kids are going to love that dog. For me, like, I know the dog's CG and not there, but it didn't bother me. He's a good enough character that I really enjoyed. And he brings another, again, lighthearted fun. That's the best thing I can say about this movie. This was a lighthearted, fun Superman movie. There are a couple moments that do get pretty dark. There's one moment, again, I won't spoil it, with Lex Luthor where it's a thing. There's one moment with Lex Luthor that kind of happens, and it's one of those like, oh, they did that, kind of things where I kind of had to take a step back and like, oh, it is a PG-13 Superman movie, because again, a lot of it feels so lighthearted. And very kid friendly movie. Like, I think even having that in this movie wouldn't spoil it for letting a kid watch it. at all. I think younger kids, especially because of how colorful this movie is, incredibly colorful. Probably the most colorful Superman movie, easily the most colorful superhero movie I've seen. I think that's going to draw kids in too, and I think younger kids even could probably sit through this movie and be entertained the entire time. There's one scene in the beginning of the movie that kind of drags just a little bit long between Lois and Clark. The interview thing, you've seen it in the trailers, drags a little bit long, that maybe kids might check out a little bit for that, but that's the only part of the movie I can really say like, oh, they'll probably check out, and it happens really, really early in the movie. One other thing I can say about it that really, really pleases me is a big fear going into this movie is like, oh man, there's a Green Lantern in this movie, Mr. Terrific's in this movie, Hawkgirl's in this movie, Metamorphose in this movie. Like, there was all these characters, and so a lot of people had this huge concern, like, man, there's too much going on. This is going to kill this movie. It is balanced perfectly. Like, those characters are in the movie, they do serve their purposes, and they're integral to the story, but they never feel like, oh man, there's too much going on. This is a 2-hour movie. I'll remind you, like, somehow James Gunn was able to get this thing down to 2 hours, and I never felt like, oh, it really feels like we cut something here, or oh, it really feels like they could have done more with this or that. It feels really tight, and that's a huge positive. I don't need every one of these superhero movies to be a 3-hour epic. Like, putting this thing at 2 hours, I think really worked, and really worked well. The only negative thing I will say that's not a spoiler is I think there is going to be a crowd of people that I do think it was the wise decision to not have Superman's origin. We don't need it. The beginning of the movie, you get kind of a little crawl about, you know, when he hit Earth, where he came from, whatever. It's done in like 30 seconds. And that I thought was perfect. If there are origin stories I never need to see again in a superhero movie, it's Batman, it's Superman, and it's Spider-Man. Like, I don't need it. And I thought that was done perfectly here. But at the same time, this is a movie that once it starts, it just goes, and it doesn't really stop to explain some of these characters. Like, they don't explain like, oh, this is Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, he came from here, and there's that, you know, this is Hawkgirl, she came from here, and blah blah blah. This is Mr. Terrific. They don't do that in this movie. It's just kind of like, they exist. This is this world. They've existed for a while. I think it's said at the beginning of the movie he's been Superman for 3 years at this point, which is perfect. But I do think that's going to be a negative for some people that go into this that maybe don't read comics, don't know who these characters are, and want more. Which is fine. I think you can make a movie like this, have people want more, and then they can go explore comics or Google that or look it up or something. But I do think there will be part of the audience that doesn't like the fact that you're jumping into this that way. The best thing I can say about it perfectly mixes like the classic Christopher Reeve Superman with a James Gunn movie, and it combines into this thing that almost feels like I was watching an episode of the 90s animated Superman show come to life. In many ways it feels like that, and that's one of the most positive things I can say about this movie. So anyways, I'm going to tell you really quick my letter grade. I don't do letter grades anymore. I'm going to give you my score for this movie, and then I'm going to briefly talk about spoilers. So I will put a big thing on here, spoilers, but briefly just saying, for me it was an 8 out of 10. Again, I don't think the movie's perfect, but I think it is pretty damn close, and I enjoyed it. I can't wait to see it again. Really, really had a fun time. Now, spoilers. There's 2 things I want to talk about with the spoilers. So if you don't want to know, you can turn this video off. You got my 8 out of 10. You're good to go. Spoilers for this movie, and you've been warned. Number 1, one of the biggest things in this movie that is changed, and I knew about it going in because unfortunately some reviews spoiled it, but it doesn't bother me, and I can understand why it bothers some people. And that is, there's this whole thing in the movie where when he goes to Fortress of Solitude, he plays the message from his parents, but part of that message was damaged when the ship crashed. So the first thing is just like, we love you. We want you to be, we picked Earth because our planet was blown up. All that kind of stuff that about Superman. But they're speaking it in Kryptonian, right? But obviously Superman understands Kryptonian. But the second half of the message is jarbled because of the crash. Well, Lex Luthor comes in and they find the Fortress of Solitude and they steal that, and they are able to decipher the second half of that message, which flips that on its head and reveals that Superman actually was sent by his parents to be an invader for Earth and actually conquer the planet. So think like the story Invincible, except his parents aren't alive. Very much like that. And it's the kind of thing where it happens pretty early in the movie too. So it's kind of like within the first 30 minutes you find this out. And I mean, the first thing out of Lex Luthor's mouth is like, no, this is real. Like, I didn't doctor this footage, is real. And by the end of the movie, they never go back to that and try to reverse that or anything. It is just a fact at this point that in this universe, he wasn't sent here to save or help Earth. He was sent here to invade Earth and conquer it and take over, basically be a king. And I know that's not going to sit well with some people. It doesn't bother me because I think it's one of the few things that like you can change about Superman and you can get away with it if you're telling a good story and if you have a plan down the road. Now, could they easily 180 that in the next movie and be like, no, actually he doctored that footage, that wasn't real? Absolutely. I actually sat because I thought maybe one of the end credit scenes would do something with it. They don't. The end credit scenes are basically jokes, and that's fine. But again, I can 100% understand why some people might walk out of this movie and not like that change to his origin. But I feel like if you're going to change anything about his origin, if you want to change the parental thing, you cannot change how his Earth parents are. It would not work. But you can change that aspect of it. Because that whole thing kind of plays a really nice element in this movie of like, it doesn't matter that you came from that. Your adoptive parents helped you become who you are, kind of a thing. I thought that was a really nice message in this movie. So for me, it didn't bother me, but I could totally understand why some people would be upset. The one thing that did bother me at the very end of this movie, this is a super ultra spoiler because nobody else is talking about this, and nobody, maybe nobody was bothered by it. I don't know. The very, very end of the movie, literally like one of the last scenes of this movie, Superman is hanging out in the Fortress of Solitude. He's kind of getting healed up after his last battle. And all of a sudden you hear kind of a crash into the Fortress of Solitude. And he goes, oh, my cousin's here. And out walks the chick that's playing Supergirl, Millie Alcock, something like that, I think her name is. And it's revealed that Krypto is not Superman's dog, but it's her dog. And he was watching her dog while she was out on vacation. And vacation was her going to a different solar system with a red sun so she could party and drink, because it's revealed that because of their powers, they can't get drunk under a yellow sun. They have to go under a red sun. For being that the first appearance of this Supergirl character, we're making her a party drunk girl. It didn't sit well with me. I was just kind of like, boy, that's your first introduction in this DCU of this character who's going to have a movie next May. I did not like that. Again, there's time to change and make me like that character more, but for that being her first introduction into the larger, and it's kind of the only like big thing we're setting up here for the overall DCU, I feel, in this movie. Otherwise, it very much feels like almost a standalone Superman thing. I did not care for that, and hopefully they have time to correct that. But she looked fine, her suit looked cool, but that part of it, I'm just like, oh, I'm not digging that direction. So we'll see. But yeah, that's gonna wrap up. I don't have anything else spoilery. I'll be talking about this movie on the podcast as well, probably not in a spoiler fashion because I don't think my other co-hosts have seen the movie yet. But yeah, 8 out of 10. Really enjoyed my time with it. Go see it. go see it in the theater. If you can see it in IMAX, see it in IMAX. I really kind of want to. It seems like a tailor-made movie for IMAX. I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure it's the first movie that was shot entirely with IMAX cameras. I could be wrong. That might be the Odyssey. But yeah, 8 out of 10. I enjoyed it. Superman's back. I think the DCU is off to a very bright start. Let me know in the comments what you think about Superman 2025, and I'll catch you later.